So my first question before I hand over to my colleague is the theme of this year's conference, that's the insurance capital markets conference, that we are having in Abuja, is deepening Nigeria's financial markets through effective deployment of pension funds, which is actually a very loaded theme. It's like tripartite. You're talking about Nigeria's financial markets, you're talking about deployment of pension funds, you're also talking about channeling those funds towards the infrastructural development of Nigeria. So what are your thoughts on this year's theme of the capital markets conference?
I think it's a great theme. I think it's very topical. I think it's very relevant to the challenges that we're facing right now. I'm sure you're aware that one of the major challenges for Nigeria is the infrastructure gap. We need a huge, significant amount of funds to be invested in infrastructure. Obviously, we've got 5.5 trillion naira in pension funds. Pension funds, since inception of the reform, has grown at an annual compound annual growth rate of 22.8%, and so grew from 0.9 trillion naira to 5.5 trillion naira. That's pretty impressive. Now, with that huge volume of funds available, it is a big shame that a significant volume of those funds are not being deployed to meeting Nigeria's infrastructure needs, are not available to the capital market. So we've still got about 80% of our pension funds invested in sovereign instruments. Yes, it's just sovereign instruments, because it just shows you, in all fairness, the entire market, has witnessed a flight to safety. And it's very natural where there is uncertainty in an economy for investors to fly to safety. Now, pension investors, pension fund managers are no different. But beyond that is the fact that we need to recognize that pension funds are supposed to be patient funds that are expected to, and we have a young generation. About 70% of Nigerians are below the age of 30. So if there is one country that can afford to put a significant proportion of its pension funds in long-term investment instruments like equities, like real estate, it is Nigeria. So there's a lot that needs to be done to shift those assets from treasury bills, money market instruments, and sovereign, debt to longer tenured, investments in infrastructure, in equity, private equity, all that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. In relation to this year's theme, we would like to know what should attending delegates be expecting from your presentation, the paper you're presenting at the conference. We'd like us to just share a bit of insights.
Okay.
Yes.
United Capital has played a significant role over the years in supporting infrastructure development in Nigeria. We have partnered with not only federal government agencies, but also a lot of the state governments, most of the state governments. So we are the leading group or leading investment banking group, for example, for the debt capital market, and also in project finance, where we have significantly supported the power generation and distribution companies in raising funds as part of the reform initiatives. So the point I'm making is that we're bringing to that conference a perspective that is enriched by direct experience in structuring transactions to support infrastructure development in our market. Now, we will also be analyzing what we think are the hurdles and the challenges that need to be crossed for us to have a healthier participation of pension funds in infrastructure. So those are some of the things that we'll be examining during my presentation, yes, at the conference.
The government of the day is obviously keen on leveraging pension fund for infrastructure. What message will you be sending to the government and other regulatory agencies at the conference?
Well, the message we will always send is that governments and regulatory agencies must provide a conducive environment, risk management and governance framework that will support investment, long-term investment in this market, a competitive investment environment. In terms of the framework that will, because some of the concerns, for example, of investors, border around issues of governance and transparency. So as a country, as regulators, as operators, we must continue to up the ante in terms of level standards of disclosure, of transparency, of governance in our business dealings, and also even in the government agencies and how the government interfaces with the public. So those are some of the things that we need to look at, in terms of also our policies on issues like the foreign exchange regime, on pump price of petroleum. Our policies must again align with global best practices to give investors confidence to come into our market and stay in our market. And of course, even the pension funds, everybody is looking for a stable, fairly predictable investment environment. High volatility is a disincentive. So we must always make sure that our policies encourage a stable investment environment. Confidence, diversification of products as well, which are some of the concerns that the pension funds have had. Hedge instruments need to be in this market. Those are some of the things that we'll be examining when we participate in the conference.